Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. I am Nate Polvogt here with my co-host, the one and only Mike Reedy. Mike, how are you doing? We are a week and 2 days away from the start of the NFL season, my friend.
I can't wait for it to start. Doing great. Can't wait for it to start. I don't want to rush it, but I'm excited. I have a bunch of home league drafts coming up. They all are the last week before the start of the season, and I love drafting. So it's one of the best times of year.
That's the way to go, man. I had my first home league draft last night. It was an auction draft, a little bit high stakes. It was fun. I'm pretty pleased with my team. But my other home league, we haven't even renewed the league on Sleeper yet. So I'm kind of failing there, but we've got to get to it. It's all friends and family, so it's not going to be hard to get everyone in line. We'll probably do the draft this weekend. Speaking of drafts, this is probably one of the busiest draft week and weekends of the year. We are butting right up against the season. As I mentioned, a week from this Thursday, the season kicks off on Thursday night. We are here with some ADP values and some traps that we think you need to really try to avoid this season. Let's get into it, Mike, and get everyone in and out of here with some knowledge. We're going to start with QB values. Now, I want to start off with your two. We've got Justin Herbert and Bryce Young. Now, these are quarterbacks who are going a lot later in drafts. Mike, let's start with Justin Herbert. Why are you targeting him? There's been a lot of talk of concern, in fact, with Greg Roman being the OC. Why are you not worried?
I wouldn't say I'm not worried. I'd say he's a value add as ADP, right? So he's going at pick 123. He's a quarterback 17. He's proven he can do it before. Right? Like, I know the last two seasons haven't been great, but all of his wide receivers and everybody keeps getting hurt. I don't think he's going to run into that this year. I do think they want to run the ball a lot. He only played 13 games last season himself. He's been a consistent QB1 or at least borderline QB1 throughout his career. We know he has arm strength. We know he can run if he needs to, right? As I was saying, the downside is the team might run more, but at the ADP he's pretty much a bargain, right? I don't think the drop off in quarterback scoring between, say, the quarterback 8 and the quarterback 20 is going to be so big that you should get super concerned after that first or second tier, whether you have a guy who's the 10th quarterback drafted or the 17th quarterback drafted. So, if you're waiting, I think he's a guy you can wait for, because they're still going to throw the ball at least 50, 51% of the time, because that's what every team in the NFL does. I think we talked about Josh Palmer last week, right? I just think he'll be viable at that price point that makes him viable for me. He's also going undrafted all over the place, by the way.
Which I think is crazy. Available. So, and I want to point this out. Justin Herbert is a lot more mobile than people think he is.
Oh, yes.
He's much more mobile. 63 carries in 2021, 54 in 2022, 52 in 2023. Last season, he averaged 4.38 yards per carry, and he had 3 rushing touchdowns. We're talking about an offense that is going to be asking him to probably be more mobile. This is a guy, Greg Roman, who had Lamar Jackson flourishing as a mobile quarterback. Why can't he have Justin Herbert do the same thing? Maybe his value has shifted to he's going to be more mobile, and maybe look at their backfield. Maybe they start using Justin Herbert more like they use Josh Allen.
It wouldn't surprise me, because I don't really like any of the running backs there.
That's what I was going to say. When you've got J.K. Dobbins, you've got Gus Edwards, you've got Kamani Vidal. I like Kamani Vidal. I don't trust Gus Edwards, and I don't trust J.K. Dobbins either to stay healthy and play full seasons.
The only one I'm interested in drafting is Vidal, and it, with that offense coordinator and head coach, you could be looking at a 3-headed committee, which makes none of them very viable, right?
Right. Now, let's talk about Bryce Young, because a lot of people are really down on Bryce Young, look at the team he had last season. He was set up to fail. They were bad. He was set up to fail in a Carolina offense that had almost no weapons. Things have changed a little bit, right?
Well, a lot.
They've changed a lot. And he's going right now as QB 29.
So
Again, largely undrafted, even in 2 QB leagues.
he easily can produce QB2 numbers right across the board, meaning he can easily be a top 20 guy. And as I mentioned, the scoring between like quarterback 8 and quarterback 20, the drop off isn't going to be so tremendous that you should factor it in as like, oh no, I didn't get a top 8 guy. Oh,
Right.
yeah, instead of getting the 9th guy, you might be better off in your draft taking another wide receiver or another running back and holding off a little bit. Now, again, this guy's not getting drafted. His overall ADP is what, 202? 29th quarterback taken. Canales is the offensive coordinator there, and he revived Baker Mayfield's career last year in Tampa Bay. So I like that. I like that the offensive line got better in the off season. I like that a lot. These are two things I care about more than most fantasy analysts. Offensive line and coaching. I am always saying on DFS shows, as you'll see this year, that coaching and play calling matters. Too many people don't factor that in, and then they're wondering why the guy they thought was a stud is only getting 3 passes thrown his way, like Kyle Pitts. Well, because they don't call the plays and they don't have a quarterback that can get the ball in his hand. So you have to pay attention to that stuff.
As the guy who did offensive line rankings for Fantasy Pros, like I could not agree with you more. This stuff plays such an important role because if your offensive line isn't clearing out the defensive line to give you holes or give you time to throw the ball, how are you supposed to be productive from an NFL standpoint or a fantasy standpoint? And the fact that Carolina has made these changes, we know Bryce Young has the talent, right? He needs the time and he needs the outlets. They gave him Deontay Johnson. I think that's a pretty good outlet for a rookie quarter, for a second-year quarterback.
And he looked pretty sharp in that 85-yard drive he had. I was pleasantly surprised with that. That's what got him here, by the way, on my list, was that drive, that 85-yard drive. Watching that, he looked poised. He looked crisp. They looked clean as a team, right? Yeah. They have more options in the passing game than they had last year. The better offensive line. I like him more than I thought I would, by the way. I did not think I would have him here. He was somebody I was a little concerned about as well because he was so bad last year. But when you're running for your life every play, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we're going to jump over to the 2 guys that I picked. Bryce Young was on my list of players I was thinking about talking about, but I couldn't help myself with this one. Gardner Minshew, he's been named the starter in Vegas. Love him or hate him, he's going to be a productive fantasy quarterback. He was QB 21 last season. He didn't start the first couple of games. He played in all 17. We talked about him a little bit last week. He is the model of efficiency in a quarterback. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes. He has had single-digit interception totals every season of his 5-year going into year 6 career. He has Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, but then he's got Mike Mayer and he's got Brock Bowers. He has weapons.
He does.
And he's going ridiculously late in drafts. Right now, he is QB 32. He's going undrafted, mostly.
I'm a fan. I've been a fan. He's productive. No, he's not the greatest starting quarterback in the league. He's the best backup quarterback in the league. And the expectations should be held that way. But if you can't find a place to stream him this year at a minimum, shame on you. The weapons are really good in that that wide receiver room is good. Like actually good. Not they're okay. They're upper echelon group. It's kind of why I like Jacoby Myers some. I know I mentioned that he's never seen a tackle he wants to break, but he's got great hands. He catches what's thrown at him. He runs great routes. And, I mean, the other guy, Adams, is just one of the best
Devontae Adams
in the league, right? So
well, and let's not forget, in his rookie season in Jacksonville, 67 carries, 344 rushing yards. The dude can run. He can move. And in this era where we're looking for anything extra in a quarterback that can give you value, in an offense where their top 2 rushing options are Zamir White and Alexander Madison, we might see Minshew moving quite a bit. Again, this isn't a very good offensive line either, Mike.
He's a beast. And he
He's a
can take the
beast.
hits. Honestly,
Right.
Minshew's a monster.
He's a monster. And he'll move and he'll get some of that rushing upside. Maybe we'll see him. He had 3 rushing touchdowns last year. So I don't know. I think there's some upside there. Then the last guy, I don't think we need to talk much about him, but I think Kirk Cousins is a value right now, Mike. He's going QB 19. This is someone I believe has QB1 tier upside this season.
When has he not been a top 12 QB? And I'm sorry I didn't go to research that, but I thought about it when I read this. Like I was like, when is he not a top 12 guy? And he has good. Supposedly, we all think these guys are great pass catchers. At least London and Pitts, and some of the secondary guys are pretty good too. By the way, like supposedly he has really good weapons in that offense. You're talking about a guy who produces, unless he's not healed. He should be very good. So his ADP makes sense because of the injury last year, but you could be getting a huge bargain there, a huge steal with him.
So Cousins is okay. So to answer your question, he has finished outside of the QB1 tier 2 times since he became a starter in the league. Last season, because he got hurt and only played 8 games, but he still finished his QB 24. So in Superflex, he was still a QB2. Yeah, 8.5 games. And then in 2019 in Minnesota, he only played 15 games. He finished his QB 19. Then I'll take that back. In 2018, he finished his QB 13. Outside of that, he has been a QB1 every other season of his career.
Yeah, he's always viable.
You could argue that these are some of the best weapons he has ever had in an offense. Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Drake London, Darnell Mooney. You've got Kyle Pitts. This is a pretty loaded offense. I look for Kirk Cousins to finish as long as he is healthy, and he has looked so in camp. I think he's a top 12 quarterback this year. You're getting at a discount.
I know I don't like to always tip my hat to my league mates in my home leagues because even though they say they don't watch things I'm in or read things I write, I know they do because I watch what they do to me and abuse me with knowing what I do, what I say. He's one of those guys I'll be looking for to draft. And it's because where you can get him. I'm not saying I won't back that up with another QB because I probably will just in case his injury is a concern. I just don't know. But I've drafted him many times and I've never been upset with it ever.
Yep. Same. I wanted to hate Kirk Cousins for being so vanilla for so long. I can't anymore. Like I bought into Kirk Cousins and I will continue to buy into Kirk Cousins at this value all draft season long. Now, Mike, let's talk about some quarterbacks we're not buying into. I'm going to get started with mine. It's Brock Purdy.
Why? Tell me why.
So he was QB6 last season. He had a pretty stellar season. I don't see him repeating that. I think there are better quarterbacks who are going to outpace him. I think he's maybe like QB 18 to 20 this season. This feels like a trap to me, right? We see these guys I just think he's going too high. It feels like a trap to me. It feels like you can get the same production out of a guy like Kirk Cousins later down the line in a draft.
I like him more if Brandon Ayuk is playing than if Brandon Ayuk is not playing on that team, to be honest, because he and Ayuk were very efficient together. They brought out the best in each other. I'm a Purdy fan. I like him.
I don't dislike him.
I think he's a winner, right? Like I think he finds ways to win games, but I can see the efficiency level dropping. He was incredibly efficient in that offense last year. And, defensive coaches have a year of tape on him now that they've been studying since last year. So we'll get to see if they pick up any tendencies he may have that I don't know about because I don't watch film like that. And I'm not good enough to do that at film watching. I like him, but again, the range of where he could fall is QB 10, QB 28. I don't know. I just don't know.
And that's kind of where that's why it feels like a trap to me, because I think we're so bought into, Brock Purdy's a sure thing to be a top 10 quarterback this year. I'm not so sure he is. If he doesn't have Brandon Ayuk, if he gets hurt, if someone else in the offense gets hurt, and then all of a sudden they're lacking weapons, what if Trent Williams gets hurt and misses time?
Oh my goodness, that's bad.
And Trent Williams has been known to get hurt. He has weak knees, he has weak ankles, as most offensive linemen who are later in their career do. I mean, ask Mark Schlereth about that. It's just the way it is. And if Trent Williams misses time, that is going to significantly impact Brock Purdy in a negative way.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it.
Yep. Now you, Mike, have the guy who's right behind him in ADP right now. As
everybody's darling in the fantasy community, by the way, and people will hate me for this, and it's sorry. He's a rookie, Jayden Daniels, going as a QB 12, 101st pick overall. I'm not drafting him anywhere. And I get the desire to get him, right? Because he can run and he can pass and he's the Heisman Trophy winner. Huge, huge threat to run. I like McLaurin. I think he's good for McLaurin, by the way. I really think Jayden Daniels should be good for him. I don't hate him, but I'm afraid to draft him that high as a top 12 quarterback because he's a rookie, right? After McLaurin, who does he have? Eckler? Robinson, maybe?
Somebody we're going to talk about later that I really like.
He's
couple players, actually.
But at, what's he weigh? 190 pounds?
Yeah, he's lighter than me.
That's what I mean. This is the NFL,
Yeah.
not college. Everybody's bigger, faster, stronger. I know people want to compare him to somebody like Lamar Jackson, but that MVP season with Lamar Jackson, I drafted him with my last pick in every home league I had. I won a lot of championships, by the way, that year. And that was a value pick. This is not a value pick. This is drafting at his ceiling, not at his floor. And with a rookie, I'm just not willing to do that with a rookie quarterback.
And I think that's fair. I like Jayden Daniels a lot this season. I think that his ceiling is a top 5 quarterback in most fantasy formats just because of the mobility. I think he's going to probably snipe some touchdowns from Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. I think it's going to be good for fantasy. From an NFL standpoint, I think he has a long way to go to being a top tier quarterback. But in fantasy, I can see him sneaking into that like top 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks. That said, I really do think he's being drafted too high. And I agree with you. There's a lot of risk involved in this pick.
Yeah, it's not hate on the player. It's mitigating the risk. That's all.
Well, and I've seen him going as early as like 4th or 5th in super flex drafts. And I get the excitement. And there's been a lot of talk coming out of camp about Jayden Daniels is the real deal. This guy is the real deal. I get it. And he probably is. And I love the hype. I love the player. I love what he did in college. I'm kind of an odd LSU guy for reasons I'm not going to explain here. But we've got, as fantasy managers and as fantasy analysts, we have to be realistic about what these players, what's the realistic chance that Jayden Daniels hits his ceiling this season?
Well, this is where I want to say, don't listen to the dynasty guys when you're doing redraft. Why? Because the dynasty guys want to draft the rookies in the first round and redraft too, because that's where they spend all their energy studying these guys. He's a rookie. Can he produce top 10 numbers? Yes. Are you mitigating that risk where you pick him? Probably not. I mean, I've seen him go as a top 5 quarterback in leagues, and I'm just shaking my head at that because
he shouldn't be your QB1. You should not be taking Jayden Daniels as your QB1.
Or
love
Caleb
the
Williams.
upside.
Yeah.
Should not. I mean, unless you're in 100 leagues and you're just trying to kind of
mix
salt
it up,
and pepper, exposure, whatever, or best ball even fine. But in a normal redraft league, guys, you have no business taking Jayden Daniels as your QB1.
Yeah,
we're just.
I like him. I just got to mitigate that risk. I can't do
exactly. All right, let's move on to running back values here, Mike. Let's start with yours. I really like these. Alvin Kamara is your first one, and I couldn't agree more, man. RB17 for a guy with RB1 potential.
It feels like everybody's down on him. I know from watching a couple of their games last year, he didn't look good, by the way. He didn't look great. He looked slow. But he had 75 receptions on 86 targets. And I know they're just little drop passes in the flat. That's going to continue to happen. So in PPR, I love him. And Fantasy Pro says he has the easiest schedule for a running back on the season. So that's kind of why I like Taysom Hill, by the way, running inside the 20 last week as well. But he only had 6 TDs last year, right? So I think you're going to see some positive regression on the touchdowns for Kamara. He's not done. They're going to need him in the passing game. So in half-point PPR and full PPR, I think he's going to exceed this 45th place where he's averaging being picked, which is, middle of the 4th round-ish, right? I think you can take him and feel good with him as your second running back, or maybe even your first running back if you're doing 0 running back in a PPR league. I think you can feel safe that he's going to get these 70 some odd receptions, and that last year is more like a floor for him still this year.
In PPR, he was RB11 last season.
Yeah.
He missed 4 games.
I was just thinking that too. I'm like, and he missed 4 games.
He missed
right?
4 games.
So
he had 70. He was targeted 86 times in 13 games, Mike.
This is the floor. That's what I'm saying. This is floor, his floor. Not lower than that.
Yes, this is the opposite of what we were talking about with a guy like Jayden Daniels.
Yeah.
He's now being drafted at his floor. You should be drafting all of the Alvin Kamara. This is a bad offense, guys.
Everywhere.
Bad. And whether it's Derek Carr or they jump ship on Derek Carr and they go over to Spencer Rattler at quarterback, Alvin Kamara is going to be a very busy man.
If
Would
we
this
want
be
to
the
be
first season we see him rush for 1,000 yards even?
If you want to be conservative, he's a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2. That's conservative.
That's very conservative.
He's getting drafted as if he played a full season and didn't produce.
Yeah.
He played 2/3 and produced as a running back 1. I mean, for the season. So I had drafted him in a couple of leagues and traded him for other pieces I needed while he was suspended. And he carried the teams I traded him to once he started playing. And
I had him carry a couple of my teams.
Yeah.
No,
great value.
He hasn't hit 30 yet either.
No.
So he hasn't hit that age cliff yet, guys. He has at least another season in him.
But you'd think by the way he's ranked and by the way he's discussed that he's just bad and old, and he's not there yet.
Well, he's not new shiny, Mike. And for old guys like us, we don't care about that as much. So that's why you need to be listening to what we're saying, all you youngins out there playing fantasy football. And speaking of guys that I think we're way too low on, Javonte Williams in Denver, Mike. We're now 2 years removed from that absolutely brutal knee injury. He looks good. He has looked good in preseason. He has looked good in camp.
It doesn't mean I don't like Jaleel McLaughlin, but they play different roles in that offense. And that's people were so down on Javonte this offseason. At the beginning of the offseason, Nick Scripp and I multiple times had tweets out there or posts on X, whatever you want to call it, regarding Javonte. If you didn't have him, I probably would have had him in here as well. He looks good. He is the starting running back there. Yeah. This is a head coach who runs an offense that has supported multiple running backs many, many, many times.
Alvin Kamara
and Ingram. It's I like him a lot as well. I think he's a great pick at his ADP. And he looks healed and he looks crisp. I like him.
Even if he finishes as like a middle of the road RB2, that's still, you're getting him at RB27 right now. And to your point, Mike, like this is a guy in a Sean Payton offense, and Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, Jaleel McLaughlin seems to be kind of like that Alvin Kamara light type role. Javonte Williams can do it all, though. I mean, he's a very, very talented pass catching back as well. We saw that his rookie season. We didn't see as much of it at North Carolina as I think we would have liked, but as is the case in a lot of college offenses, this is a breakout year for Javonte Williams. He's healthy. He's 100% off of that knee injury. He's got the juice in an offense that might actually be a lot better than a lot of us thought.
We'll see.
We'll see. I said might.
I didn't think they were all that bad last year, and what we're hearing about Penix is that he's pretty good, by the way, as well. Another rookie that no one's talking about as a starting fantasy option. Having these guys like these two running backs that both can catch the ball is going to help that rookie quarterback a lot. Patrick got waived. People are talking about Dulcich being a guy there. I mean, you're in this neck of the woods, right? So you get to see what the beat writers have to say more than I do, anyways, unless I'm truly paying attention. I like both of the running backs there, and I think they're both value picks. I like Javonte a lot, by the way.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think they're both really solid value picks right now. We'll see what this offense ends up being. As someone who lives in the jungle of Denver, I'm hoping this team's better than we thought. I mean, I'm rocking my old back when they were really good. 2 Super Bowls, baby. All right, now we're going to now talk about a team that hasn't ever won a Super Bowl. I don't know that they're even remotely close after all the money they gave to Deshaun Watson, but Jerome Ford. I like this one, Mike.
So right now, running back 38. He's going with the 111th pick. He's going to move up, though, ADP now because Nick Chubb's on the pup, right? There's no reason to rush Chubb back. Jerome Ford's a guy who had 813 rushing yards and 4 TDs last year after Chubb went down. So he also did not play a full season. He had 44 receptions for 319 yards and 5 more touchdowns. So we're looking at potentially 10 touchdowns from this guy. They're not going to rush Chubb back. Plus, when Chubb comes back, at best, you're probably looking at a committee. That injury was bad. He needs time to heal. There's no point in bringing him back too early, and especially since Jerome Ford was good. I love him at ADP.
I do too. And I like that you pointed out that he had the 5 receiving touchdowns last season. 3.9 yards per carry, 3.99 yards per carry. So just below that 4 that we love to see. It's where sleeper turns to green here. He was RB 16 last season, Mike. Yep. And that was with partial work. That was with Nick Chubb partially healthy.
So now, where you get him, it's great because even if Chubb came back and was healthy, you're going to get 4 weeks to start your season of this guy who's going to be your 3rd or 4th running back at a minimum.
There's no way that Nick Chubb can get back to the Nick Chubb of old. The Nick Chubb that we were taking. We were arguing, should we be taking him first overall in non-super flex formats? That guy's gone. Too many injuries, too much time. I think Jerome Ford is probably the 1A. When Nick Chubb comes back, Chubb becomes the 1B, what they needed Kareem Hunt for last season. But I think Ford's the guy. And Ford is the guy in an offense with Deshaun Watson at quarterback, who the guy still hasn't taken a snap this season.
I know.
Is he going to take a snap this season? And if he does, if Deshaun Watson's in, I think Jerome Ford is going to see a ton of volume, an absolute ton. And then when Deshaun Watson is inevitably benched, I think that volume takes a little bit of a dip because we're going to get to see Jameis Winston sling it.
I love Winston, by the way, for fantasy purposes. I know lots of people hate him, but I love him.
Look, dude.
He slings it all over the place. It's
me
great.
Too. Yeah. I'll take another 35,000 season from him in fantasy. I mean, as long as I'm not getting dinged for the interceptions, right? Now, this last one on my list, Antonio Gibson. He's going as RB 48. He's in New England now. New England's an interesting. Here's where I'm at with this. Because RB 48, do I think he's anything? He's probably at an RB 3 for me this season. A solid flex option in this New England offense. There just isn't a lot to be excited about. There's a hype train for Javon Baker and Jalen Polk. Well, as it turns out, maybe they weren't as good as we all wanted them to be. So now we've got Kendrick Bourne. We've got Hunter Henry.
I would say I'm closer to this one because I live here. And
yes, you are.
Right. And Polk is looking good in training camp. Right. So I know there was hype train, but out of the rookies that they drafted, he looks like a player, like a real player.
Okay.
I'm a huge Stevenson guy because he's always a value pick. I usually say how he's a running back too, and people trash me all over X in regards to that. And then he finishes as a running back too, and he would have last season too if he didn't get hurt. Yep. But they're not going to just use him. They're going to use Gibson as well because they have to. They don't. that wide receiver room has a lot of mediocre talent, not a lot of high-end talent.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I think he's a value pick as well. And I think that backfield is going to see a lot of touches between them and a lot of traffic.
I think so too, especially if Drake May ends up starting. I don't think they have a choice, right? Like you're just going to see a lot of touches in that backfield. And, if Gibson finishes his running back 40 or higher, you got him at RB 48. That's a pretty good deal. I'll take it. And I think his PPR upside in New England is fairly decent as well. So
better than it was in Washington.
Yeah. Way better. It's not a guy I'm super excited to draft, but at the back end of drafts, I mean, he's going to pick 164. So he's, talking like 14th, 15th round. I'll take that.
Yeah,
I don't think it's
if it doesn't pan out, he becomes waiver wire fodder. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're going to go to some running back traps that we're seeing in drafts, Mike. I'll start with mine. It saddens me because I have been one of his biggest advocates his first 2 seasons in the league, but I can't right now. James Cook right now is going as RB12. I love the guy. Ultra talented. They brought in Ray Davis. I think this offense is shifting away from what they've been. They're going to try and use Ray Davis to run the ball a little bit more. James Cook just isn't a powerful runner. I'm okay with him going more as like a middle to back end RB2, but that RB1 value for me, I think it's a trap.
The ADP is just too high, is what you're saying on him, and
plain and simple.
I haven't drafted him yet anywhere, so I agree based off my own actions, right? Like he's a player I like. I had him last year on a few teams, and he was great once he got rolling. But I haven't been drafting him this year because I think he's just going too high, and I don't like the risk associated with it as well.
Well, I think he's being drafted again. This is a player that's being drafted at their ceiling.
Yeah.
Right? He was RB12 last year. I think I think that's the cap. I think we saw the cap on James Cook last season. He had over 1,000 yards rushing. With Ray Davis in this offense, I can't see that happening.
Well, with all the wide receivers removed from the team last year,
that's a fair point.
It's if Cook is going to do it, it's probably going to be in the passing game. Yep. But this is going to be a committee. I see it that way too. We talked about it last week, right? Also, I think we're going to see a committee. I think you want to mitigate your early round picks. I've talked about this a bunch of times on Twitter and on shows. Your first 4 rounds or so, everybody's good, right? But mitigate your risk. You don't want to be drafting a guy at a ceiling from the year before, which we can talk about with the guy I have here as well. I felt the same way about Cook. You're drafting at ceiling. You can get more of a sure thing with other players that have similar ADP and not get burned, where you potentially could get burned by Cook. He's probably not going to outproduce what he did last year.
No, I just can't see it happening. And again, it's not that I don't like James Cook. Is that his ADP is just simply too high for what he can produce in this offense, I feel like, in 2024. And, Mike, I'm really glad that you brought this player to the table because I could not agree with you more.
Devon Achane. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Achane.
Achane? Sorry.
Achane.
I used to call him A-Train from The Boys, by the way.
Hey.
But he's the epitome of boom bust player. He's getting drafted as a running back 10 with the 20th pick, right? I have a keeper league where I'm keeping him because I picked him in the 10th round and I lose my 10th round pick, so it becomes a value pick. He'll end up a flex for me, which is where I think he belongs, right? You couldn't be more boomer bust than this guy. Super dynamic. Everyone loves him. But he's 5'9", 188 pounds, right? And that is not the archetype I want to look for in an every down running back, and he's not going to be an every down running back on this team. I know people think he is because he produced those huge games, but I was in sales once and my job was 100% commission, and I was a top 3 guy every quarter, and my boss used to get mad at me because I never had home runs. I just had this consistent production nonstop. bunch of base hits, no home runs. This guy's a roller coaster ride. If you want 25 points, 50 points one week, and 3 points the next week, he's your guy. But you can't build a team with him on the 20th pick in the early second round or middle second round, depending on you can't build a team off of that. He'll lose you as many weeks as he's going to win, and I don't like him there. He's being drafted at his complete ceiling, and if you paid attention to all of the data, you realize
it's not even a realistic ceiling.
It's just this. It's complete boom or bust, and you can't win doing that. That's kill you.
They still have Raheem Mostert. Yeah, he's old.
I like
but
by the way, ADP,
I do too. Raheem Mostert was RB5 last season. He showed no signs of really slowing down. I think he's going to be fantastic this year. Will he be RB5 again? Probably not. But he's going to see enough work that I can't see a volume path for Devon Achane to be an RB1. And they've got Jalen Wright too.
Yeah,
Mike McDonald loves. They've got Malik Washington. They've got Tyreek Hill. This is an offense loaded with Jalen Waddle, Braxton Berrios. They just brought in Jonnu Smith. This is a very loaded offense. And at running back, to say that they're going to have an RB1 in fantasy, their backfield is great for regular football. When it comes to fantasy, this whole backfield could be a massive trap.
It's a year to draft Tua, by the way. I know people don't like hearing it, but it's a year to draft Tua. We're looking at a potential 3-headed running back by committee, right? Where any one of those guys could get you 50 points in 1 week and nothing in the next. And they're so fast, man. It's going to be a fun season if you're a Dolphins fan. It's going to be
It is going to be a fun season. This is a very good team. They should win the East. I would be surprised if they don't. Even with those Aaron Rodgers Jets, I still think they could be the better team. Now we gotta get Motor in here, Mike, because you got to get out of here. Let's hit up these wide receiver values. I'm going to blow through my two really quick. I've got Luke McCaffrey in Washington, the rookie, the younger McCaffrey. He's going as wide receiver 81. This is a team that just unloaded Jahan Dotson. They've got Jayden Daniels, the rookie. McCaffrey works so freaking well in the slot, and he's a shark down the field. Wide receiver 81, you don't even have to draft him. You can just go ahead, get him on waivers week 1, ahead of week 1, and you're going to be pleased, and your league mates are going to be pissed. Same thing with Malik Washington, who we just mentioned in Miami. Wide receiver 129. You don't have to draft him. But what do we know about Mike McDaniel? He loves speed. And Jalen Wright is very fast as well. But Malik Washington is quick as hell. He is very much that Tyreek Hill speed type of guy. You get him in some of those pre-snap motion sets and you get him going. How are teams going to pick between Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Malik Washington?
I think you can't.
You can't.
Going to be a very fun season for that team.
Yep. Yes, exactly. All right, Mike, I like your two. Let's start with the your Northwest guy.
Andei iosivas?
Well, no, the one below him. Plays
you
in
want
the Northwest.
Jaxon Smith-Njigba?
Yeah, let's go with that guy.
All right, so he's the wide receiver 47, 103rd pick. I think DK stays the top guy. Tyler Lockett's not getting any younger. He's a guy I draft almost every year. By the way, Tyler Lockett, I like him a lot.
Me too.
But this preseason, it really looked like JSN passed him in the pecking order there, which is what people thought would happen as a rookie. But he was a rookie, and they didn't want to give him a chance. We've got changes to the coaching staff. Ryan Grubb uses 3 wide receivers. He did at Washington. You can expect him to use them here. I think JSN was the second guy here. And if you went with like Scott Simpson's wide receiver 3 theory, right, in drafting, he's the guy you want to pull from this team. His ADP is nice. It's low risk if you're going to take him, and he should exceed that, right? The 103rd pick in the draft, I think a 10th round pick. I think he'll exceed that. You're looking at potential wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 numbers. He's a guy who you're drafting as a flex at best, so I like it.
Well, and lest we all forget, the dude was pretty injured to start last season. So they brought him on very slowly. This is a new coaching regime. Pete Carroll's out. Geno Smith has looked a lot better than he did last season.
They love him, by the way, there.
Yes.
And it's what a story, man. We need movies about this guy.
Right. Let's hope. Tyler Lockett's getting older. JSN, he just feels like a smash at wide receiver 47. Now, I'm going to let you say this guy's name because I don't.
All right. I want to know how I learned how to say it? By listening to another podcast where
there we go.
Because I didn't know. Andei Iosivas.
Iosivas.
Sorry, it was Sirius XM Radio. Andei Iosivas. He is currently wide receiver 92, pick 281. You're not drafting him. And if you want to with your last pick because your league's deep, he's free. He is as free as it gets. Okay. He's probably winning this wide receiver third slot on the Bengals, even though people don't think he is. I think he is.
Yeah.
Week 18 last year, he had 7 targets. He hauled in 5 receptions, 36 yards, 2 touchdowns. I played him in DFS that week, by the way, and won a lot of money. Thank you. So yes, I'm emotionally attached to him a little. He had in the 2 games where he played a lot, he had 21% target share, 35% of the air yard share in those 2 games. Tyler Boyd's gone. We're looking to see who's going to fill that other role. And imagine if Jamar Chase holds out and misses any time. This is a guy you're going to be plugging and playing. I like him. And do I think he's going to bring you wide receiver 2 numbers on the season? No. But as a free guy you're getting at the end of a draft or off of waivers, pay attention to him, flag him in your league. He's probably going to be producing. It might not be a weekly thing, but he's probably going to be worth rostership at some point in time this season.
Yep, no, and I agree. And this, again, they're looking for that wide receiver 3. Tyler Boyd's gone. Right now in depth charts, they've got Trenton Irwin slotted in, but I can't see that making it to the actual season.
I don't either.
Yeah, all right. So let's hit these traps up real quick. These ones are pretty easy. Let's just go with the one that we both agree on here, Mike. We'll stick with the one guy. Stefon Diggs is going wide receiver 19.
Too many mouths to feed in Houston. Don't care if anybody doesn't like that term. There's 3 good wide receivers, and the quarterback likes both of the other ones better, in my opinion. And Diggs could prove me wrong. I didn't draft him ever once he went to Buffalo, and I won't be drafting him this year in Houston because I don't like the situation for him. I just don't like it.
Well, I mean, like I have said many times, you get past week 10, 11, 12, and he just fades. Yeah. And he is now 30 years old. He's going into his 10th season in the league. He's in an offense with much younger receivers who CJ Stroud is going to favor. I just don't see the path to him living up to his ADP right now. I simply don't see it. Now, let's get to some tight ends. As I told you, this is my favorite position, Mike. I love tight ends. I love looking for value. I almost went with your guy, but decided to go a little bit deeper. But let's talk about your guy first.
Well, I went with Hunter Henry here. He's the TE19, 178th pick on average. He wasn't healthy last year. It showed. He really wasn't. He had a 15% target share, though, in the games he played, and he played 70% of the snaps. So when he's healthy, he's on the field. He is a big red zone target for this team. He has been in the past. I know different coaching staff. It doesn't matter. They don't have a lot of high-end weapons in that passing game that are known commodities. He is one. In the games he played last year, there were 10. He was a TE1 in 50% of those games. So he averaged 10.8 fantasy points per week in the 10 games played. He would have finished as a TE8 on the season overall. So he's drafted below way below probably what his floor is going to be. I just see him as a high value. He's on waiver wires in leagues I play in. He was not drafted in most of them at all. And I think we'll be talking about him on this show as an ad as we get into the season.
I agree. I feel the same about my guy. I'm going with rookie Ben Sinnott in Washington. A couple of reasons. One, He's a rookie who's going as tight end 23 in an offense with a rookie quarterback. And as you and I just talked about, there aren't a ton of weapons in that offense right now. They just got rid of Jahan Dotson, Luke McCaffrey, Ben Sinnott, Jayden Daniels. I feel like these might be the three most exciting assets outside of Terry McLaurin in this offense. Not super excited about the backfield. I'm sorry. My Facebook friend, Brian Robinson, if you're watching, I still love you, buddy. But I think Ben Sinnott could be a value. He's one of those guys, again, not getting drafted. If you're going to be streaming tight ends, keep this guy on your radar. He could provide some value as the season moves on. He could get more involved in this offense. He's a pretty efficient blocker as well, which is something you really want to see out of these tight ends. Keeps them on the field. And real quick now, got a couple of questions we want to get to in the chat, but I want to hit our traps real quick, Mike. Guys, I don't think have the path to value to living up to their ADP. I'll go with mine first. Brock Bowers, tight end 11. I love the talent, great dynasty asset, but in redraft, guys, be realistic about what he's going to be in this offense. Even with Gardner Minshew, it's really hard to see him being a top-tier tight end.
Did Michael Meyer lead that team?
Right? That's what I keep wondering when I see him going so
I know
high.
he didn't. Yeah, I know he didn't. Yeah.
Yep.
I have George Kittle. Roughly 50% of the time, he was a good tight end last year. 9 out of 17 games, he had double-digit fantasy scores. Again, you're looking at a roller coaster ride with Kittle. He might be the best all-around tight end in the league. I think he is. I love him as a football player. I don't love him as a fantasy asset. He's going to lose you as many weeks as he wins you. That's all. Yep. Another roller coaster ride, and he's the TE6 right now. A round later, you can draft Evan Ingram, who's going to see 140 targets or something insane like that. So
yeah, I got Evan Ingram in an auction draft last night for I think $6. So I mean, and those are the kind of guys at tight end. Unless you get a top 3 or 4 tight end in this climate right now, you need to be streaming every week. That's just the way of it. Because once you get past really the top 5 guys, Taysom Hill was a top 12 tight end last year.
Yeah, I know.
So.
And these other guys, as people talk about his floor's low, everybody else, their floor is just as low. It's just as low.
Yeah, right. All right, now real quick, Mike, I want to get to a couple of questions here we got in the chat. Isaac Watson just wants some help on this trade here. He's going to give Cooper Kupp, Brandon Ayuk, Jake Ferguson, King Henry, Keon Coleman. He gets Kelsey Kamara, DK, Christian Watson, and Malik Neighbors. Mike, how do you feel about this trade?
Is this redraft or dynasty? That's a blockbuster if ever I saw one.
I'm going to assume this is dynasty here.
I'm going to assume it's dynasty as well. Oh, my goodness. I have to tell you, there's a lot of older guys on both sides of this. You want to win this season? I'm probably leaning more towards this Kelsey Kamara, DK Watson, Malik Neighbors team than the other team.
Same. Yeah, Isaac, I'd make this deal. If you're giving up the Kupp Ayuk side, I would do this if you're to win now. This will get you closer to a championship. One last one here before we announce our College Football 25 winner and get you out of here. Turnpike Tony. I got Kyron as a 7th-round keeper, drafting from spot 11, looking for the best wide receiver to pair with Garrett Wilson at the 1-2 turn. Being realistic about who's available here at that 1-2 turn, Mike, I would say, guys, I'd be looking to pair some leagues. I've seen Amon-Ra slip if he's not kept. Outside of that, I don't know who would you be looking at here?
Well, here, Wilson is a guy who would be available there, but you're looking who to pair with him.
Yep. You got muted, Mike.
I start passing on some of those guys that are available there. There's guys sliding though there. You can look at people like Kupp's going to be available there. Deebo Samuels, it might be a little early for those guys, but
Puka might be available.
Puka might be available. With him being dinged up, I'm a little out on him though. Just because he's dinged up, it's hard to be out on him. I know, but
it is hard.
I think Kupp's going to bring you just as much value. It depends on who slides in round 1 and who's kept, right? This is what's making it hard. If it's keepers, you're assuming Justin Jefferson's kept, Jamar Chase is kept, Amon-Ra St. Brown's kept. So I think you're looking more at the Deebos, the DK Metcalf type guys.
DK's a guy I'd be great with paired with Garrett Wilson. I think there's a lot of value right there.
Yeah, and I like DK Metcalf a lot this year. We've talked about that team a little bit too much, maybe on this show, huh?
Probably a little
I like
bit,
him
but
a lot.
brand colors do kind of look like Seahawks colors. Just it is what it is. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank everyone so much for tuning in. Real quick, we're going to get to it. As you know, we are giving away a copy of College Football 25. We have given that copy away. Let me get this comment off the screen here and get that up there. The winner is Jerry Bagshaw. We want to thank Jerry for signing up for Pros with Joe's, subscribing to our YouTube channel, and thanks to everybody who entered. Pros with Joe's is done, so make sure you look for it next season. Donations are not over, though. There will be a link coming out where we are going to be doing general donations. Whoever wins gets to pick the charity for that final chunk of donations. So make sure you check that out at proswithjoes.com. Mike, thanks for tuning in. Well, thanks for coming out and showing up, man. This has been fun, and you can catch us, guys, every Tuesday, all season long. Once we get into actual football, we'll be dropping waiver wire finds every week on Tuesday to help you win your leagues.
Thanks for managing my time for me, Nate. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we got to get you the hell out of here,
great job,
man. Yeah, man. All right, we'll see you guys on the flip side. Have a great week. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, everybody.